The small town of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, had always felt like a warm blanket to Evelyn Harper. Nestled between rolling green hills and a lazy river that whispered through the seasons, the town hadn't changed much in the 47 years she'd lived there. Same red brick houses with white shutters, same Main Street with Miller's Diner still serving the best apple pie in 3 counties. Same church bell that rang every Sunday at exactly 9:45 a.m. Evelyn's house sat at the end of Maple Lane, a modest 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch, flower boxes overflowing with geraniums in summer, and a big maple tree in the front yard that turned brilliant crimson every October. Inside, the walls were lined with photographs. Her late husband George smiling in his army uniform, their wedding day in 1972, little Ryan riding his first bicycle, Ryan's high school graduation, Ryan and Sophia's wedding 8 years ago. Every picture told a story of love, hard work, and quiet pride. Evelyn, now 72, still moved with the careful grace of someone who had spent decades taking care of others. Her silver hair was always neatly pinned, her cardigans soft and pastel, her eyes the kind that noticed everything, even when she pretended not to. Lately, though, those eyes had started to carry a shadow. It began on a crisp October afternoon. The doorbell rang just after 3. Evelyn was in the kitchen rolling out dough for cinnamon rolls, Ryan's favorite since he was 5. She wiped her hands on her apron and opened the door to find her son and daughter-in-law standing there, both dressed nicer than usual. Ryan in a crisp button-down, Sophia in a cream blouse and pearls. They looked purposeful. "Mom," Ryan said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation, "we need to talk." Sophia followed, closing the door gently behind her. She gave Evelyn that practiced smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes. Evelyn felt the first tiny knot form in her stomach. They sat around the old oak kitchen table, the same table where George used to read the newspaper every morning, where Ryan used to do his homework, where Evelyn had taught her grandson, now away at college, how to make pancakes. Ryan cleared his throat. "Mom, we've been worried about you." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Worried? I'm fine, sweetheart. I walk to the market every morning, I tend my garden, I even started that new puzzle book you sent me last Christmas." Sophia leaned forward, folding her hands. "It's not about what you can do today, Evelyn. It's about what might happen tomorrow, or next month, or next year." Ryan nodded quickly. "You're not as young as you used to be. The stairs, the yard work, driving in the snow. What if something happens and no one's around?" Evelyn looked from one to the other. "I've lived alone since your father passed 8 years ago. I've managed just fine." "But you shouldn't have to manage," Sophia said softly. "You deserve better. Peace, safety, someone to look after you." Ryan reached across the table and took his mother's hand. His grip was warm, familiar. For a moment, Evelyn almost relaxed. "We found the perfect place. Sunny Meadows Retirement Community. It's only 20 minutes from our house. Beautiful grounds, activities every day, nurses on call 24 hours. They have a book club, gardening club, even movie nights. You'd love it." Evelyn pulled her hand back slowly. "A retirement home?" "It's not like the old nursing homes you think of. It's more like independent living with support. Your own apartment, private bathroom, kitchenette. You keep your independence." Evelyn stared at the tablecloth. The tiny embroidered roses she'd stitched 30 years ago suddenly looked faded. "And what happens to this house?" she asked quietly. Ryan and Sophia exchanged a quick glance. "We think it's best to sell it," Ryan said. "The market is good right now. We could get a strong price. The money would cover your expenses at Sunny Meadows for years, and whatever's left could be savings, security." Evelyn felt the room tilt just slightly. My home, she whispered. The home your father and I built together. The home you grew up in. It's just bricks and wood, Mom, Ryan said gently. What matters is you being safe. Sophia nodded. And honestly, maintaining this place is too much for one person. The roof needs work, the furnace is ancient, the property taxes keep going up. It's a burden. Evelyn looked up sharply. A burden? Ryan winced. I didn't mean it like that. We want to take care of you, the way you always took care of us. There was a long silence. Evelyn thought about the nights she'd sat up when Ryan had pneumonia at 8, the way she'd worked double shifts at the library after George's heart attack so they wouldn't lose the house, the way she'd quietly paid for Ryan's college when his scholarships fell short, the way she'd given them the down payment for their own house when they got married. She had never asked for anything in return, only to grow old here, in peace. Ryan leaned closer. We already spoke to the director. They have an opening, a really nice corner unit with a view of the gardens. We can move you in next week. Next week? Evelyn's voice cracked. Sophia reached out and patted Evelyn's arm. It's sudden, I know, but the sooner we do this, the better. Winter is coming. You shouldn't be alone when the first snow hits. Evelyn looked at her son's face, the same face she'd kissed goodnight thousands of times, the same brown eyes that used to light up when she brought home ice cream after a long day. Those eyes now looked impatient. She felt something inside her shift. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, something that recognized the shape of betrayal, even if the word hadn't formed yet. I need time to think, she said. Ryan frowned. Mom, we've already put down a deposit. They're holding the room for us. Evelyn's hands tightened in her lap. A deposit? With whose money? Another quick glance between them. With savings, Sophia said carefully. We use some from your account, just to secure it. It's refundable if you change your mind. My account. Evelyn's voice was very quiet now. You went into my account. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, the same nervous habit he had since childhood. We're joint signatories, remember? From when Dad was sick. It was easier for bills. Evelyn remembered. She had trusted them completely back then. She stood up slowly. I'd like you both to leave now. Ryan stood too. Mom? Please. Sophia rose gracefully. We're only trying to help. Evelyn walked them to the door. She didn't speak again. When the door closed behind them, she leaned against it for a long time, listening to their car start and pull away. Then she went upstairs. In the guest bedroom, the room that used to be Ryan's, there was a small fireproof safe under the bed. Evelyn dragged it out, hands trembling slightly. Inside, old bank statements, property deeds, insurance papers, and something else. A slim folder labeled E.H. Investments. She hadn't looked at it in years, but she knew what was inside. She sat on the edge of the bed, folder in her lap, and let the memories come. 40 years ago, when George was still alive and the tech world was just beginning to wake up, they had made a few careful investments, small at first, then bigger, quietly, through a blind trust. Evelyn had always been the one who read the financial pages, who studied trends, who saw potential where others saw risk. One of those early investments was in a tiny venture capital firm in Boston called Crestwood Partners. Over the decades, that firm had grown and grown and grown, and Evelyn, through the blind trust, had quietly become its largest silent shareholder. She had never told Ryan, she had never told anyone, not because she was hiding it, but because she believed family should never be about money. Now, though, she opened the folder. The most recent statement, mailed 3 months ago, showed her ownership stake, 51%, controlling interest, and one of Crestwood's newest, most promising portfolio companies, Harper Homes, Ryan and Sophia's startup, the one they had just poured nearly $200,000 into, money taken from Evelyn's retirement savings, without asking. Evelyn closed the folder. She walked back downstairs to the kitchen. The cinnamon roll dough was still sitting on the counter, rising quietly. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she picked up the bowl and dropped it into the trash. The soft thud echoed in the empty house. She stood there, hands on the counter, breathing slowly. Outside, the maple leaves were beginning to fall, one by one, like tiny red warnings. Evelyn whispered to the empty room, her voice steady for the first time in days. "They think I'm finished." She smiled, small, sad, and very, very sharp. The first week at Sunny Meadows felt like stepping into someone else's life. Evelyn's new apartment was clean, bright, and painfully impersonal. Beige walls, beige carpet, a single window overlooking a manicured lawn dotted with benches no one ever sat on for long. The furniture was sturdy but forgettable. A small sofa, a round table, 2 chairs, a bed with a quilt that smelled faintly of bleach. Her own things were here, at least the few they'd allowed her to bring. A framed photo of George on the nightstand, her favorite teapot, the blue one with a tiny chip on the spout, a box of old letters tied with ribbon, and 3 potted plants she'd insisted on carrying herself: a peace lily, a spider plant, and the little jade she'd started from a cutting 30 years ago. The rest, the antique dresser, the bookshelves full of worn novels, the quilt her mother had sewn, had vanished into the sale of the house. Streamlined, Ryan had called it. Practical, Sophia had added with that bright, efficient smile. Evelyn had said nothing. She spent her mornings the same way she always had: early rising, quiet routine. At 6:30 a.m., she brewed tea in the tiny kitchenette. By 7, she was dressed: simple blouse, cardigan, comfortable shoes. By 7:30, she was walking the indoor corridor loop, 3 slow laps, nodding politely to the other residents who shuffled by with walkers or in wheelchairs. Most of them smiled back. Some didn't. A few whispered as she passed. "That's the new one. Her kids moved her in fast. Poor thing, looks lost." Evelyn heard them. She always heard everything. But she kept her head high and her pace steady. The afternoons were harder. That was when the silence crept in. No radio playing old jazz like George used to love. No sound of the neighbor's lawnmower. No phone ringing with Ryan asking if she needed anything from the store. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the distant murmur of a television in the common room down the hall. She avoided the common room at first. Too many people trying to be kind. Too many questions. Where are your children? Do they visit often? Oh, you must miss your old house. So she stayed in her room, reading, watering her plants, staring out the window at the unchanging lawn, and watching. She had asked the front desk for a small television, nothing fancy, just basic cable. They'd brought one the second day. She kept the volume low, mostly on news channels and the occasional financial program. That's how she first saw them. It was a Thursday afternoon, 2 weeks after the move. A local business spotlight segment. The host, a cheerful woman in a red blazer, stood in front of a sleek, modern office building. Today, we're talking to the exciting new startup taking the smart home world by storm, Harper Homes. The camera cut to Ryan. He looked good. Tailored suit, confident smile, hair neatly combed back the way Sophia liked it. Next to him stood Sophia, elegant in a navy dress, hand resting lightly on his arm. The host asked, "So tell us, what makes Harper Homes different?" Ryan leaned into the microphone. "We're building the future of home living. Affordable, intuitive, smart devices that connect everything. Lights, thermostat, security, even your coffee maker, all controlled from one simple app. And the best part? We're a family company, built from the ground up by me and my wife, with the support of, well, generations of hard work behind us." The host laughed warmly. "Family values and cutting-edge tech. That's a winning combination." Sophia smiled wider. We've already secured significant seed funding and we're on track for a major product launch next quarter. It's happening fast, faster than we dreamed. Evelyn watched the screen without blinking. Generations of hard work. She felt something tighten in her chest. Not quite anger, not yet. More like the slow turning of a key in a lock that had been rusted shut for years. She turned off the television. For the rest of the day, she sat quietly, hands folded in her lap. The peace lily drooped slightly. She misted it with water from a little spray bottle. That evening, she made her first phone call since arriving. Mr. Thompson's number was still the same after 35 years. He answered on the second ring. "Evelyn? Is that really you?" His voice was older, rougher, but warm, like coming home. "Yes, Arthur, it's me." A long pause. "I heard about the house, about Sunny Meadows. I'm sure the whole town heard," she said dryly. Another pause. "Are you all right?" "I'm managing." "You always do." He cleared his throat. "What can I do for you, old friend?" She took a slow breath. "I need you to pull the latest statements for the EH Trust, everything related to Crestwood Partners, and the current portfolio companies." Silence on the line. Then, quietly, "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure." "I'll have everything ready tomorrow. I can bring it myself if you'd like." "No need to come here yet. Just send it, discreetly." "Of course." She hesitated. "Arthur?" "Yes?" "Thank you." "Always, Evelyn." She hung up. The room felt smaller after that call, but also clearer. The next morning, she walked her laps earlier than usual. She passed the activity board in the lobby. Today's events: 10 a.m., bingo; 1 p.m., chair yoga; 3 p.m., current events discussion. She signed up for none of them. Instead, she returned to her room, opened her small notebook, the one she'd kept since George's passing, and began to write. Dates, amounts, names. She wrote until her hand cramped. Over the next few weeks, a quiet rhythm emerged. Mornings, walk, tea, read the newspaper. The facility provided a free copy. Afternoons, television, especially business news. Evenings, notebook. Memories, planning. She learned things. Harper Homes had launched their first product line, a starter kit of smart plugs, bulbs, and a hub, and it was selling out online within hours. Reviews were glowing, investors were circling. Ryan and Sophia appeared in more interviews. They talked about vision, disruption, building something lasting. They never mentioned Evelyn, not once. One evening, she saw something that made her pause the television. A close-up of their new house. The camera panned across a spacious living room, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, abstract art on the walls. Sophia walked through the frame carrying a glass of wine, laughing at something Ryan said off camera. The reporter's voiceover. With the success of Harper Homes, the founders have upgraded to this beautiful new property in the hills, a well-deserved reward for their hard work. Evelyn stared at the screen. She recognized the neighborhood. It was the same one she and George had looked at 30 years ago. Too expensive then. They'd laughed about it, called it the someday house. Someday had come for someone else. She turned off the TV, walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. She stood there for a long time. Then she opened the bottom drawer of the nightstand. Inside, the slim folder she'd brought from the old house, EH Investments. She spread the papers on the bed. Trust documents, ownership percentages, transfer records, and the most recent valuation summary from Crestwood Partners dated just last month. Harper Homes, current valuation $42 million. Projected post-Series A, $120 million. Evelyn's stake through the blind trust, 51%, controlling interest. She had never drawn a penny from it, never needed to. George's pension and her library savings had been enough. She had left it alone, growing quietly, waiting. Now it waited no longer. She gathered the papers, returned them to the folder, and placed it back in the drawer. Then she sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, and spoke to the empty room in a voice so soft only the plants could hear. I gave you the best years of my life, my time, my money, my heart. A small, sad smile touched her lips. And you thought that was all I had. She stood, walked to the mirror above the dresser, studied her reflection. Silver hair, lined face, eyes still sharp and clear. I'm not done yet, she whispered. Outside, the last light of day faded. The hallway lights came on, soft and golden. Somewhere down the corridor, someone laughed. A bingo caller's voice echoed faintly. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. Then she opened them again and began to plan. The next 3 months passed like a season in fast forward. Outside Evelyn's window at Sunny Meadows, autumn leaves gave way to bare branches, then the first dusting of snow. Inside, the facility decorated for the holidays. Paper snowflakes in the hallways, a plastic tree in the lobby with gold tinsel that caught the fluorescent light. Residents wore festive sweaters. Carolers came on weekends. Evelyn watched it all with polite distance. She smiled when the activities director asked if she'd like to join the cookie baking group. She said maybe next time when invited to the holiday movie marathon. She kept to her routine: walks, tea, notebook, television. But the television had become her window to a different world. Harper Homes was everywhere. Local news, business podcasts, even a short segment on a national morning show. The starter kit had sold out 3 times. Pre-orders for the next generation hub were already in the tens of thousands. Tech blogs called it the most intuitive smart home system of the decade. Investors poured in. A Series A funding round closed at $18 million. The valuation jumped to $85 million almost overnight. Ryan and Sophia were suddenly names people recognized in Willow Creek and beyond. Evelyn saw the changes in pieces, like a puzzle assembling itself on her small screen. First came the new car. A sleek black SUV appeared in one of their Instagram posts. Evelyn had asked a kind nurse to help her set up a private account so she could follow without being seen. Caption: treating ourselves after the big funding news. Grateful for the journey. Hashtag Harper Homes. Hashtag Family First. Then, the vacations. A quick weekend in New York for investor meetings, photos from a rooftop bar overlooking the city skyline, Sophia in a red dress, Ryan in a suit, both laughing with champagne glasses. Then, the house upgrade. Not just the one they'd shown before, they'd moved again. This time to a modern estate on 5 acres outside the city. Floor-to-ceiling glass, infinity pool, home theater. A real estate blog featured it. Tech founders embrace luxury living. Evelyn watched the tour video on her phone one quiet evening. The camera glided through marble floors, designer kitchen, a master bedroom larger than her entire old living room. She paused on a framed photo in the background, her and George on their wedding day, smiling in black and white. They'd placed it on a side table in the new home office, like a trophy, like proof of roots they no longer watered. She closed the video. Her hands were steady, her breathing even. She opened her notebook instead, added new entries. Funding round, $18 million. Valuation, $85 million plus. Personal expenses charged to company card, from a leaked internal memo she'd seen mentioned online. Private jet rental, designer furniture delivery, luxury spa retreat. She underlined the last line twice. Then she wrote one more note in very small letters at the bottom of the page. They're using my money to buy their happiness. She closed the notebook. Winter deepened. Christmas came. Ryan and Sophia visited on Christmas Eve. They arrived in the new SUV, snowflakes melting on its hood. Sophia carried a poinsettia wrapped in gold foil. Ryan held a gift bag with tissue paper sticking out. They found Evelyn in the common room, sitting near the fake fireplace, reading an old paperback. "Mom!" Ryan called, too loud for the quiet space. Several heads turned. Evelyn closed her book slowly. She stood, smiled the small, careful smile she'd perfected over the months. "Merry Christmas, you two." Sophia hugged her first, quick, perfumed, the way people hug when they're in a hurry. Ryan followed, squeezing her shoulders like he was afraid she might break. "We brought gifts," Sophia said brightly, "and we wanted to see how you're settling in." They sat at one of the round tables. A nurse brought hot chocolate. The gift bag contained a fluffy robe for those cozy winter days, scented candles to make your room feel more like home, a box of chocolates, your favorite kind, we think. Evelyn thanked them. She noticed the chocolates were not her favorite. They were the expensive kind Sophia liked. "How are you feeling?" Ryan asked. "Fine," Evelyn said. "The food is regular, the bed is firm, the people are kind." Sophia leaned in. "We're so glad, really. The holidays have been crazy with the launch, but we didn't want to miss you." Evelyn nodded. "I've seen you on TV. You look very busy." Ryan laughed, a little too loud again. "Yeah, it's been wild. We're actually flying to San Francisco next week for a big investor dinner. Could be the lead up to IPO talks." "IPO," Evelyn repeated softly. Sophia beamed. "If everything goes right, we could be looking at a public offering in the next 12 to 18 months. It's life-changing." Evelyn looked at them both. Their faces glowed with the kind of excitement that comes from winning something big. She thought about the old kitchen table, about teaching Ryan to tie his shoes, about late nights sewing his Halloween costumes, about writing checks for his college tuition from her savings. Life-changing. "Yes," she said quietly, "I imagine it is." They stayed 40 minutes, talked mostly about themselves, the new house, the new friends, the new pressure. Before they left, Ryan pressed an envelope into her hand. "A little something extra," he whispered, "for Christmas. Buy yourself something nice." Inside, a check for $500. Evelyn looked at it for a long moment. Then she folded it and put it in her cardigan pocket. "Thank you," she said. They hugged her again, promised to call more often, waved as they walked back to the SUV. Evelyn watched from the window until the taillights disappeared into the snow. She returned to her room, took the check out, tore it slowly into small pieces, dropped the pieces into the trash. Then she sat at the tiny desk, opened her laptop, the one she'd asked Mr. Thompson to bring her last month, logged into the secure portal he had set up. New documents waited. Board meeting minutes, financial projections, internal emails. She read them carefully. One email chain caught her eye. From Sophia to Ryan, subject, expense clarification. "We use the company card for the Hawaii trip. Call it team building. Investors won't notice. We're the founders. Perks come with the territory." Ryan's reply, "Agreed, just keep receipts vague." Evelyn highlighted the exchange, saved it. Another document, transfer records. The original $200,000 from Evelyn's savings had been moved into Harper Home's operating account 6 months ago. No loan agreement, no repayment schedule, just gone. She closed the laptop. Outside, snow fell silently. She whispered to the empty room, voice calm and clear. "Soon." The new year arrived. Harper Homes launched version 2.0. Sleeker design, voice integration, AI learning features. Sales exploded. The company hired 30 new employees. They moved into a bigger office downtown. Glass walls, ping pong table, free snacks. The media loved them. America's next big tech family. From small-town dream to Silicon Valley darling. Valuation estimates climbed past $150 million. IPO buzz grew louder. Analysts predicted a blockbuster debut. Evelyn watched it all. She walked her laps every morning, she tended her plants, she smiled at the other residents. But inside, something had hardened. Not into cruelty, into clarity. She spoke to Mr. Thompson once a week now, quiet calls after lights out. "Everything is in place," he told her in early March. "The trust documents are airtight. Your voting rights are untouched, the blind structure held perfectly. No one knows EH is you. And the embezzlement evidence? Enough to make any board member uncomfortable. Personal expenses, questionable transfers. It's sloppy, arrogant even. Evelyn nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Prepare the packet," she said. "I want everything ready for the pre-IPO board meeting." A pause. "You're really going to do this?" "Yes, Arthur." Her voice was soft but certain. "I gave them every chance." She hung up, stood at the window. The snow had melted. Crocuses were pushing through the lawn. Spring was coming. Harper Homes was preparing for its biggest moment. Ryan and Sophia were planning a grand launch party at their estate. Invitations had gone out to investors, journalists, local celebrities. They thought they were untouchable. They thought the story was already written. Evelyn looked at the calendar on her wall. The pre-IPO board meeting was scheduled for April 15th. She circled the date in red. Then she wrote beneath it, in careful handwriting, "The day everything changes." She closed the calendar, sat on the edge of her bed, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself a small, private smile. Not cruel, not bitter, just ready. The rise had been spectacular. The fall was coming. Chapter 4. The Big Reveal. April 15th arrived like any other spring day at Sunny Meadows. Birds sang outside the windows. The lawn smelled of fresh-cut grass. Residents gathered for morning coffee in the sunroom. Evelyn woke at 5:45 a.m. as always. She dressed carefully, not in her usual soft cardigan and slacks. Today, she chose the navy blue dress she'd kept folded at the bottom of her drawer for years. The one George had bought her for their 40th anniversary. Simple, elegant, timeless. She pinned her silver hair neatly, added a single strand of pearls, and looked in the mirror. She didn't look like a resident of a retirement home anymore. She looked like a woman who had come to settle accounts. At 8 a.m., Mr. Thompson arrived. He wore his best gray suit, carried a slim leather briefcase, and drove the same old Buick he'd had since the 90s. He found Evelyn waiting in the small lobby. "You're sure about this?" he asked quietly. "I've been sure for months, Arthur." He nodded once. "Then let's go make history." They left together in his car. No fanfare, no goodbye to the staff, just a quiet walk to the parking lot and the soft click of the Buick's door. The drive to downtown took 40 minutes. They spoke little, mostly about the weather, about old times, about George. When they reached the sleek glass building that housed Harper Homes' new headquarters, Mr. Thompson parked in the visitor lot. Evelyn stepped out, briefcase in hand. She straightened her shoulders. Inside the lobby, marble floors reflected the morning light. A young receptionist looked up. "Good morning, how can I help you?" "Evelyn Harper," she said calmly. "I'm here for the board meeting." The receptionist blinked. "I'm sorry, the board meeting is closed to—" Mr. Thompson placed a business card on the counter. "Arthur Thompson, legal counsel for EH Trust. We're expected." The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw the name on the card. She picked up the phone. A moment later, a nervous executive assistant appeared. "This way, please." They rode the elevator to the 12th floor. Glass walls, modern art, the faint smell of expensive coffee. The boardroom's doors were closed. Voices murmured inside, confident, excited, celebratory. The assistant knocked lightly, then opened the door. 20 heads turned. Ryan stood at the head of the long table, mid-sentence. Sophia sat to his right, tablet in hand. It rolled across the polished table and clattered to the floor. No one moved to pick it up. Ryan stared at her. "Mom, what are you—" Evelyn didn't look at him yet. She addressed the entire room. "For those who need documentation, everything is here. Trust agreements, transfer records, ownership proofs, voting proxies. You'll find it all quite thorough." She slid the envelope toward the nearest board member. He opened it with shaking hands. Pages rustled. A venture capitalist, a man in his 50s with silver temples, leaned forward. This can't be right. We would have known." "You weren't supposed to know," Evelyn said simply. "That's the point of a blind trust. Anonymity, quiet accumulation, patient growth." Sophia found her voice. "This is ridiculous. You're in a retirement home. You can't just—" "I was placed in a retirement home," Evelyn corrected, her tone still calm, "by my son and daughter-in-law, after they convinced me it was for my own good, after they sold my house, after they transferred $200,000 from my personal savings into this company without a single repayment agreement." Ryan's face flushed red. "That money was a gift?" Evelyn asked softly. "A loan? An investment? You never specified, because you never asked." The room shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Thompson stepped forward. "I have prepared a summary of questionable transactions over the past 8 months. Personal expenses charged to company accounts, trips, vehicles, home furnishings, all documented with receipts, credit card statements, and internal emails." He placed a second folder on the table. One of the lawyers reached for it, flipped through. His expression darkened with each page. Ryan stood up suddenly. "Mom, stop this. We can talk about it privately. This isn't—" Evelyn finally looked directly at him. Her eyes were not angry. They were tired and resolute. "You had many chances to talk, Ryan. When I asked about the house, when I asked about my savings, when I asked why I hadn't seen you in weeks. You chose convenience over honesty. Now we do this the formal way." She turned to the board. "As majority shareholder, I call for an emergency vote. Motion 1, removal of Ryan Harper and Sophia Harper from their executive positions and board seats effective immediately due to breach of fiduciary duty and misuse of company funds." A stunned murmur rippled around the table. Motion 2, freeze all distributions, bonuses, and stock options to the above individuals pending full audit. Motion 3, initiate independent forensic accounting review of all transactions since inception. She paused. Her voice remained even. "I will abstain from voting to allow the independent members to decide freely, but understand this. If these motions fail, I will exercise my full rights to dissolve the current structure and liquidate assets as I see fit." The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. Then the silver-templed venture capitalist spoke. "I second the motions." One by one, hands rose. Not all, but enough. Majority carried. Ryan sank back into his chair like the air had been pulled from his body. Sophia's face was white. Tears glittered in her eyes. Whether from shock, anger, or fear, no one could tell. Evelyn remained standing. "There is one final matter." She opened the briefcase again, removed a single sheet. "I have instructed my counsel to prepare a charitable trust. The majority of my shares, after debts and obligations are settled, will be transferred to a foundation dedicated to elder care, affordable housing, and financial literacy for seniors. Harper Homes will continue, but it will no longer be a vehicle for personal enrichment at the expense of others." She looked around the table. "I built this quietly so my family could have security, not so they could forget where it came from." She closed the briefcase with a soft click. "I'll be in the conference room down the hall. I expect the resignations, in writing, within the hour." She turned, walked toward the door. At the threshold, she paused, looked back at her son. "Ryan." He lifted his head, eyes red. "I still love you," she said quietly, "but love does not mean letting someone destroy themselves or others." Then she left. The door closed behind her with the softest sound. In the hallway, Mr. Thompson offered his arm. She took it. They walked slowly toward the small conference room that had been prepared. Behind them, the boardroom erupted into hushed, urgent voices. But Evelyn didn't look back. She had waited long enough. Now the truth had its day, and the reckoning, quiet, complete, and final, had only just begun. The days after the board meeting felt like the hush that follows a long storm. The headlines came quickly. Harper Homes leadership shakeup ahead of IPO. Founders step down amid internal review. Silent investor steps in to restructure promising startup. The media didn't know the full story, not yet. They speculated. They guessed. They interviewed analysts who spoke in careful, measured tones about governance issues and founder transitions. But inside the glass building on the 12th floor, the truth settled like dust after an earthquake. Evelyn didn't return to the headquarters right away. She went back to Sunny Meadows first, quietly, without announcement. She packed her few belongings, the teapot, the plants, the framed photo of George, the notebook filled with dates and decisions. The staff was surprised when she told them she was leaving. The activities director hugged her. A few residents waved from the sunroom windows as Mr. Thompson's old Buick pulled away. She didn't go far. With Mr. Thompson's help, she bought back the house on Maple Lane. Not the same house exactly. The new owners had painted the shutters gray and removed the flower boxes. But the bones were still there. The maple tree still stood in the front yard, older and broader. The porch still creaked in the same familiar way when she stepped onto it for the first time. She walked through the empty rooms slowly. The echoes were loud at first. Memories pressed in from every corner. George laughing in the kitchen, Ryan's footsteps racing down the stairs, the smell of cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning. She didn't cry. She had done enough of that in private. Instead, she opened windows, let spring air move through the house, brought in her plants and set them on the sills where sunlight could find them. Then she began to rebuild, one small choice at a time. First, the garden. She bought new geraniums, bright red and pink. She planted them in the old flower boxes she'd rescued from the garage. She knelt in the dirt, hands in soil, feeling the earth welcome her back. Second, the kitchen. She bought a new stove. Nothing fancy, just reliable. She baked cinnamon rolls the first weekend. The smell filled the house like a memory coming home. Third, the quiet. She kept the television off most days. She read books again, real books with paper pages. She walked to the market every morning, nodding to neighbors who recognized her and smiled in surprise. "Evelyn, you're back?" "Yes," she would say simply. "I'm home." Word spread slowly in Willow Creek. People stopped by with casseroles, flowers, questions they didn't quite know how to ask. She welcomed them. She answered what she could. The rest she let be. 3 weeks after the meeting, Ryan called. She almost didn't answer. The number appeared on her new phone screen, the same one he'd had for years. She took a breath, pressed accept. "Hello, Mom?" His voice was small, hoarse. "Hello, Ryan." A long silence. I don't know where to start." "You don't have to start anywhere yet," she said gently. "Just talk when you're ready." Another pause. "I'm sorry." The words came out broken. "I'm so sorry. For everything. For the house, for the money, for treating you like you didn't matter." Evelyn sat at the kitchen table, the same old oak one that had survived the sale and been returned by the buyers as part of the negotiation. "I know you're sorry. Do you hate me?" She said it without hesitation. "I was hurt, deeply, but hate would only hurt me more." He cried then, quiet, choking sounds over the phone. Sophia's voice came on next. She sounded smaller than Evelyn had ever heard her. "Evelyn, I don't expect forgiveness. Not really. But I need you to know I was wrong. About everything. I thought success meant leaving things behind. I was wrong." Evelyn listened. She didn't interrupt. When Sophia finished, Evelyn spoke. I'm not closing the door, Sophia. But trust is earned slowly. Words are easy. Actions take time. They talked for almost an hour. Not about the company, not about money, about feelings, about mistakes, about what it means to be family. Before they hung up, Evelyn said one thing clearly. If you want to try again, start small. Come for coffee. No expectations. Just show up. 2 days later, they did. Ryan drove the old SUV. The flashy black one had been sold to cover personal debts. Sophia carried a small bakery box, plain cinnamon rolls from Miller's Diner. They stood on the porch like strangers at first. Evelyn opened the door. She didn't smile widely. She didn't rush to hug, but she stepped aside. Come in. They sat at the kitchen table. She poured coffee, strong and black, the way Ryan liked it, a little cream for Sophia. No one spoke for the first few minutes. Then Ryan said, "We're looking for jobs, real jobs, not executive, entry level, anything." Sophia nodded. "We've been talking to career counselors. We're taking classes online, financial ethics, corporate governance, things we should have learned years ago." Evelyn listened. "That's a good start," she said. After coffee, they walked the garden with her. She showed them the new geraniums, the jade plant cuttings she'd taken from the old one. Ryan touched the maple tree's bark. "I used to climb this when I was 8. You fell once, broke your arm. You cried the whole way to the hospital, but you wouldn't let go of my hand." He swallowed hard. "I forgot that." "You were little," she said. "Children forget. Adults remember when it matters." They came back every Saturday after that, sometimes just for coffee, sometimes to help with yard work, sometimes to sit in silence. Evelyn didn't make it easy. She didn't make it hard either. She let time do the healing. Meanwhile, Harper Homes continued, but changed. The new board, a mix of experienced executives and community representatives, restructured the company. Employee benefits improved. Profit sharing was introduced. The charitable foundation Evelyn established received the majority of her shares over time. It funded senior centers, financial workshops, affordable housing projects across Pennsylvania and beyond. The IPO happened 6 months later. Smaller than originally planned, more stable, more ethical. Evelyn didn't attend the bell-ringing ceremony. She watched a short clip on her phone, then turned it off. She had no need for the spotlight. One warm July afternoon, Ryan and Sophia arrived with a surprise. They carried a large box wrapped in plain brown paper. Inside, a new quilt, hand-stitched. Not professional, the stitches were uneven in places, but made with care. The pattern was simple, maple leaves in crimson and gold. "We made it together," Sophia said quietly. "Took us 3 months. We learned from a lady at the community center." She unfolded it slowly, ran her fingers over the fabric. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ryan shifted. "We want to ask something." She looked up. "If you're ready, we'd like to come home again. Not to live here, not yet, but to be part of your life again, properly, respectfully." Evelyn studied their faces. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement had been replaced by something softer, something real. She nodded once. "Then start by staying for dinner tonight." They did. She cooked, nothing fancy. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans from the garden, apple pie for dessert. They ate at the old oak table. They talked about ordinary things, the weather, the neighbors, a new recipe Sophia had tried, a book Ryan was reading. After dinner, they cleared the table together, washed dishes side by side. The kitchen filled with quiet sounds, clink of plates, running water, soft laughter at a small joke. When the sun began to set, they walked to the porch. Evelyn sat in her favorite rocking chair. Ryan and Sophia sat on the steps. The maple leaves rustled overhead. Fireflies began to blink in the yard. No one spoke for a long while. Then Evelyn said, very softly, "I never wanted the money, or the power, or the company. I wanted a family that remembered to love each other even when it wasn't convenient." Ryan looked at her, eyes shining. "We remember now, Mom." She reached out, touched his hand, then Sophia's. "I know," she said. The sky turned rose and gold. Somewhere down the street, a church bell rang. Soft, steady, familiar. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes for a moment. She felt the warmth of the day fading, the gentle weight of hands holding hers, the quiet certainty that some things, once broken, could be mended. Not perfectly, but strongly. She opened her eyes again and smiled, a real smile, small and true, because home wasn't just a house. It wasn't money or success. It was this: people who show up, who stay, who learn, who love, not perfectly, but honestly. And sometimes that was enough. More than enough.